So this is a big difference. I'll use the 1/8 when I'm punching like hyacinths or something, something small and quick, like it's 2 foot under the mat maybe, or shallower, or even just a light like hydrilla or something on the edges. If you're on the edges, I love using 1/8 because you could really winch in quick to like 2 or 3 cranks, you're already back in, you could flip to the next hole. I'll drop it down to a 6/1 whenever I'm getting thicker in that stuff, because you want, it's like if you think about whenever you're going through mud with a truck, you don't want to go through the mud in 5th gear or something and you're spinning out and you're just losing it. You want to drop down gears, get lower to where you can winch through it and get there. And that's the same thing with fishing. You want that lower gear ratio to winch them out of that heavier stuff. Simple bait selection. And this is where I came up with some baits. I started selling baits with my company I was with last year, and it was called a sucker punch. And I basically designed it just from punching for years and years and learning that these fish don't care what you're punching through. None of them. It's all about buying the fisherman for that most part. So I made the simplest bait. It's just a regular body and 2 little legs in the back to give it look like a brim or anything. And it hides the hook to where they couldn't even see them. But what I'm trying to get at is that these fish don't care that it's got 12 appendages coming off of it, this has got eyes on it or anything like that. It's all that reaction. So if they're just seeing that object go straight in front of them, they're coming at it and they're eating it. They're not sitting there debating it, and because you're not going to have it in that hole that long anyway. You're punching through there, and it's either I'll pick it up once, drop it back down, nothing, that's it. They're not going to come out there and just sit there and think about it. You know, you got to go to the next hole. And I'd rather catch those fish that are in that reaction bite too, because normally they're bigger. But the simple bait too, if you got all these appendages as well, then you can't really use a 3/4 ounce weight, which is easier because you got everything hanging up on every little piece of grass whenever you're trying to punch through, or the little tree limb. Like it's getting stuck on everything. So honestly, sometimes I would punch a Seno. Like I get a 3/4 ounce with a Seno, and just because it's the pressure that these fish get a lot of times on these lakes where it is punching, for instance, Florida or Toledo Bend a lot, and Rayburn, you got to go to like the different baits and something they don't see as much. But for the most part, you got to keep it simple whenever you're doing that. Again, with the 3/4 ounce weight, I like the lighter weight just because I feel like if you got a heavier weight on too, that if you got that, if you think about it, you got a 2 ounce weight or 1.75 ounces, and you're setting a hook on a fish, you got that big weight right in the front. Whenever you're yanking it, it's popping their mouth open. So almost half the time when you got that big weight, you're not getting a good hook set in them. You're barely skinning them probably. So with that 3/4 ounce, it's almost just the same size as that bait anyway. So the lighter, the better. It was always the thing I went with was that if I could get through the mat with a 3/8, I'm going with 3/8. You want to go the lightest possible to get through. You don't want anything more, and you don't want anything less, because then you won't be able to get through it. But 3/4 I find is the sweet spot. If you can figure out how to get through mats with a 3/4 ounce weight, you'll get way more bites. So yeah, with the last thing, it's pretty quick, but the bait choice, like we just said, you just keep it simple. Something, even like on, like for instance, like brush hogs or just something with a lot of appendages, you could modify it. I modify every time I'm punching. Any other bait I have, I'll take everything off the sides of it. I just want the body for the hook, and then I want 2 things on the back just to give it something to go through the water, make it look like a tail or something. And then again, it's all reaction. So don't overthink it, and don't sit in that hole too long, because you're wasting time on that next hole where you could be punching and more. And then you got to think why. So whenever you're going down these grass lines or you're punching, always try to figure out why. Or like if you're catching them on the corners and stuff going down the line, they're probably sitting there waiting for some bait to come by. But if they're way back in the match, they're probably not wanting to eat. They're just sitting there to get out the weather, stay warm. And you just got to put it together. You know, you catch 2 fish 10 feet back in the mat, then you just keep going down. Like, don't even target the front of them if you're not getting bit. Just stay at that 10-foot range, and they're almost all like that. Yes?